understand a mother's love, and I am sorry I broke your heart.
But out of nowhere, her relationship with her husband starts to crumble.
Behind the badges and sworn oaths to protect, some women hid dark secrets. From Laurie Bembenek's shocking betrayal to Valerie Cincinelli's deadly rampage, these female officers crossed the line, leaving shattered lives in their wake. Let's begin.
She stands convicted again of killing a young woman while her small children slept in nearby beds.
On May 28, 1981, in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, a quiet neighborhood was shaken by the killing of a young mother. Christine Schultz, a nurse and mother of two, was found bound, gagged, and shot inside her own home. Her sons were asleep in the next room. The community was shocked, but what came as an even greater surprise was the identity of the main suspect, 22-year-old Laurie Bembenek, a former police officer and the new wife of Christine's ex-husband. Laurie's story captured national attention, led to public debates, inspired books and movies, and eventually earned her the nickname Bambi. Laurie had trained at the Milwaukee Police Academy and briefly served as a patrol officer. However, her career was cut short after a scandal involving another officer, and she was fired. Later, she married Fred Schultz, a veteran officer who had two sons from his previous marriage to Christine Schultz. Laurie quickly stepped into the role of stepmother. Just months into her marriage, tragedy struck. Christine was killed in her home in a horrifying attack. She had been tied up and shot through the heart. One of her sons described seeing a masked figure with a reddish ponytail leaving the house. While the witness believed the intruder was a man, the investigation soon focused on Laurie instead. Detectives discovered that the killing weapon was Fred Schultz's off-duty revolver, which had been kept in the apartment he shared with Laurie. Laurie also had access to a copy of the key to Christine's house. There was no sign of forced entry. Witnesses said Laurie had previously made comments suggesting she wanted Christine gone. Police found a wig in the plumbing system of her apartment that matched fibers discovered at the crime scene. A green jogging suit, a clothesline, and a blue bandana, all similar to the items used during the killing, were also linked to her. Even though Christine's son had described the killer as a man, Laurie was arrested. The trial quickly became a media sensation. Prosecutors painted Laurie as a jealous woman who wanted her husband's ex-wife out of their lives forever. On March 9, 1982, Laurie Bembenek was found guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison, but the case did not end there. It took an unexpected twist years later. In 1990, Laurie escaped from Tachita Correctional Institution with help from her new fiancé. The two fled across the border and were eventually found in Canada after more than 3 months on the run. The press had a field day. Headlines around the country read, "Run, Bambi, run," and the case gained even more fame. Prosecutors argued that Laurie's motive was simple. They claimed she wanted financial freedom. With Christine gone, Laurie and Fred would no longer need to deal with child support or alimony. They said she wanted to take Christine's place completely, but Laurie continued to maintain her innocence. Over time, new evidence raised questions about the original investigation. Male DNA was discovered at the scene. Ballistics tests did not match Fred's gun, and even the hair samples presented during the trial were later disputed.
Laurie Bembenek has not slowed down the controversy over whether she was guilty or innocent of murdering her husband's ex-wife.
Some believed Laurie had been framed. Others suspected that someone else had been involved, even someone hired to commit the killing. Doubts began to grow about whether justice had truly been served. In 1992, after spending nearly 11 years behind bars, Laurie accepted a plea deal. However, she showed no emotion during her sentencing. She entered a no-contest plea to second-degree murder in exchange for time already served and was placed on probation for 10 years. She walked free, but never stopped trying to clear her name. Her attempts to appeal were consistently denied, mostly because of that no-contest plea. Still, Laurie pushed forward, pointing to inconsistencies in the evidence and testimonies that changed over time. She eventually moved to Washington, married again, and tried to live a normal life. But her health continued to decline. She suffered from post-traumatic stress, battled alcoholism, and later lost part of her leg after a serious fall. On November 20th, 2010, Laurie Bembenek passed away at the age of 52. Laurie Bembenek's story continues to haunt and divide. Some believe she was a cold-blooded killer, while others see her as a woman wrongly convicted by a flawed system. Many wonder if she took the fall for someone else's crime. The full truth may never be known, but one thing is certain. Her case permanently changed public perception of justice and the media. Our next case reveals how a single shot shattered a promising future.
Delta 310, reminder they're armed.
In 2013, in Dallas, Texas, a former police officer made a tragic mistake that changed a young man's life forever. Amy Wilburn, once a Dallas police officer, shot an innocent man who had his hands raised. In 2013, Kelvin Walker was sitting in the front seat of a stolen car. He didn't know the car was stolen and was not involved in any crime. When police arrived, Kelvin raised his hands to show he was not a threat. Despite this, Amy Wilburn fired her gun and shot him. After the shooting, the Dallas Police Department investigated the incident. Wilburn said she could not see Kelvin's right hand and thought she was in danger. But an independent witness confirmed Kelvin had his hands up. Because of her actions, Amy Wilburn was fired from the police force. Amy Wilburn pleaded guilty to a misdemeanor charge of discharging a firearm within a city. She gave up her peace officer's license and was sentenced to 18 months of deferred adjudication, which means she avoided jail time, but had to follow court orders.
Turned me up on the inside. Every day I look at my scars. Every day I wake up to a bullet that's still in me.
The shooting wasn't driven by anger, but stemmed from fear and poor judgment in a high-pressure moment. Still, the harm done to Kelvin was very real and life-altering. Despite this, Wilburn showed no remorse and maintained a cold demeanor during sentencing. Kelvin Walker spoke in court about how the shooting changed his life. Once a star athlete and starting quarterback, he said, "Now I can't run, I can't jump, I can't do anything." He has also filed a civil rights lawsuit against Amy Wilburn and the city of Dallas, with a trial planned soon. For almost 5 years, Kelvin lived with the pain and struggled from that day. In court, he said, "It's been hurting me and killing me." When he saw Amy Wilburn again in court, she said nothing as she left. Our next case is full of jealousy and deception, where a police officer crossed the line with a deadly plan.
Who, according to the FBI, went out and tried to hire a hitman in order to kill her estranged husband and the daughter.
On a quiet morning in May 2019, officers arrived at the Suffolk County home of Valerie Cincinelli, a New York police officer with 5 years of service. They had devastating news to deliver. Her estranged husband, Isaiah Carvalho, had just been found dead. Valerie broke down on the spot, appearing shocked and overwhelmed. Based on the information the press could get their hands on, the scene looked like a tragic end to a rocky marriage. But behind that grief was a far darker truth. Just days earlier, federal agents were tipped off about a disturbing murder-for-hire plot allegedly orchestrated by Valerie herself. While still serving as an NYPD officer, she had reached out to her boyfriend, John DeRuba, and asked him to find a hitman. The target was her husband Isaiah. But what truly shocked investigators was that Valerie also allegedly wanted another person dead, DeRuba's 13-year-old daughter. She reportedly hated the teen and was jealous of the expensive gifts John was buying her. Instead of going along with the plan, John went straight to the FBI. The FBI acted fast. They launched a sting operation to catch Valerie in the act. First, they convinced Isaiah to play dead. He recalled how agents placed shattered glass around the passenger seat and told him to slump over, as if he had been shot. Then they took a fake crime scene photo and used it to trick Valerie into believing her plan had succeeded. Agents showed up at her door with grim expressions and broke the news. Her reaction was caught on video. She seemed shocked, even heartbroken, but prosecutors said it was all a fake. They had wiretaps, text messages, and secret recordings proving Valerie had planned the whole thing. The moment everything unraveled came when Valerie, thinking she was in the clear, told John to erase any evidence. "Delete my effing text. You're not keeping anything on this effing phone."
Delete my text. You're not keeping anything on this phone.
That was when the FBI moved in and made the arrest. Investigators believed Valerie was driven by jealousy and control. Her marriage was crumbling, and her relationship with John was full of tension. She allegedly couldn't stand the attention and money John gave to his daughter. Prosecutors said she was willing to kill both her husband and a teenage girl just to get her way. Valerie was arrested and charged in federal court. While the murder-for-hire charges were dropped as a part of a plea deal, she pleaded guilty to obstruction of justice. In 2021, she was sentenced to 48 months in prison. She was suspended from the NYPD without pay and later resigned from the force. DeRuba was not charged. For Isaiah Carvalho, the entire ordeal left deep scars. He now lives with constant fear, always looking over his shoulder. "I thought I married someone who swore to protect and serve," he said in an interview. "Instead, I got someone who tried to have me killed." Even today, the memory of pretending to be dead in the car, surrounded by broken glass, still haunts him. Our next case is a devastating nightmare. a split-second mistake that cost a young life forever.
I grabbed the wrong gun! I shot him! Oh my God! Oh my God!
On a Sunday afternoon, April 11th, 2021, in Brooklyn Center, Minnesota, 20-year-old Dante Wright was driving with his girlfriend when his car was pulled over by the police. What began as a routine traffic stop ended in tragedy and sent shockwaves across the country. Dante Wright, a young black father, was stopped for minor traffic violations. As officers checked his ID, they discovered he had an outstanding warrant. When they attempted to arrest him, the situation quickly escalated. In the middle of the struggle, Officer Kimberly Potter pulled out her gun, mistaking it for her taser, and fired one shot. Dante was struck in the chest. He drove a short distance before crashing. Paramedics tried to save him, but it was too late. Dante Wright died at the scene. The next day, body cam footage was released. It showed Potter shouting, "Taser, taser, taser," just before pulling the trigger. Her reaction was immediate. She realized she had fired her handgun instead. The video confirmed the tragic mistake.
Tase him! Taser, taser, taser! Ah, he shot me. Oh, shit!
In the following days, both Kimberly Potter and the police chief resigned from their positions. Protests erupted across Minnesota and the country. Dante's death reopened painful wounds, especially with the George Floyd trial happening just miles away. As public pressure mounted, Potter was arrested and charged with manslaughter. Prosecutors argued that she had years of training and should have known the difference between a bright yellow taser and a black handgun. The case went to trial, and the courtroom was heavy with emotion. Potter took the stand and tearfully admitted her mistake, but Dante's family, especially his mother, found no comfort in her words. This was not a premeditated act, it was a deadly error. Potter said she was under stress and confused at the moment. But her mistake ended her life. Dante Wright would never return home to his family or raise his young son. On December 23, 2021, Kimberly Potter was found guilty of both first and second-degree manslaughter. She was sentenced to 2 years in prison and served just 16 months. When the verdict was read, she tearfully apologized for her actions. Many felt the punishment did not reflect the gravity of the loss. Dante's family reached a $3.25 million settlement with the city. His name became another symbol in a national conversation about police use of force and injustice. Dante's mother said she could never forgive Potter for what had been taken from them. Our next case reveals a robbery carried out by a former officer that left an entire neighborhood stunned.
Former New Orleans police officer who killed 3 people back in the 90s during a shocking crime.
In 1995, in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, Antoinette Frank, a former New Orleans police officer, was involved in a deadly robbery at a local restaurant. 3 people were killed, including a fellow officer. The case shocked the community and led to a long investigation. The tragedy happened at the Kim On restaurant, where both Antoinette Frank and Officer Ronald Williams II worked extra shifts as security guards. That night, the robbery turned deadly. Frank and an accomplice opened fire, killing Officer Williams along with Ha Vu and Quang Vu. After the shooting, Frank left the restaurant but returned later pretending to bring help. However, members of the Vu family who had hidden inside a large cooler recognized her when she came back. Their eyewitness accounts helped investigators connect her to the crime. Frank's accomplice was also arrested and is now serving a life sentence. Antoinette Frank was eventually sentenced to death for killing. However, when the verdict was announced, she walked out of the courtroom with a blank, expressionless face. But in 2025, she requested clemency from the Louisiana Pardon Board, asking to have her sentence reduced. After emotional testimony from both supporters and victims' families, the board's vote ended in a tie. With a 2-2 vote, her request was officially denied. While the motive behind the crime was believed to be robbery,
Frank is trying to avoid the death sentence handed down after her conviction in a 1995 triple murder.
Frank's supporters pointed to her deeply painful past. She had suffered years of mistreatment as a child, including repeated assault by her father and being forced into a termination of pregnancy. Despite this, the board focused on her conduct in prison and concerns about public safety if her sentence was changed. Governor John Bell Edwards had voiced strong opposition to the death penalty and supported clemency hearings for many death row inmates, including Frank. But due to political blocks and the board's split decision, her sentence remains unchanged. Antoinette Frank is still on death row with no chance of parole. The families of the victims, especially Officer Williams' son, strongly opposed any eligibility for leniency. This case continues to raise difficult questions about justice, accountability, and forgiveness. While Frank's past is tragic, the suffering she caused can never be erased. It is a painful reminder that one decision, one act of conflict, can destroy multiple lives and leave lasting scars on everyone involved. Next up, a moment that blurred the line between accident and accountability. Amber Geiger claimed it was a mistake, but the jury saw it differently.
I'm an off-duty officer. I thought it was in my apartment, and I shot a guy thinking it was my apartment.
Amber Geiger, a police officer with the Dallas Police Department, lived in a 4-story apartment complex located 2 blocks northwest of her police headquarters in the Cedars district of South Dallas. The floor plans at the complex were identical on every floor, making navigation within the building challenging. On September 6, 2018, Amber Geiger left work after her 13.5-hour shift as a patrol officer around 9:30 p.m. As she was driving home, she engaged in a conversation with her partner. She was armed with her handgun during this time, but her body camera was not turned on. Upon arriving at her apartment complex, Amber failed to notice that she had taken the wrong floor. As Amber attempted to enter what she thought was her apartment, she saw the door was ajar, thinking it was an intruder. Amber drew her weapon and entered the apartment. Once inside, Amber encountered Botham John in his living room, eating ice cream. In a tragic turn of events, Amber shot and killed Botham, striking him twice in the chest. Amber Geiger called 911 to report the shooting.
Get up, man.
Dallas 911, this is Carla. Where's your emergency?
Hi, this is an off-duty officer. I need EMS. I'm inside the apartment with him. Hey, come on.
What's your name?
I'm Amber Geiger. I need to get me, I'm in...
Okay, we have help on the way.
I know, but I'm gonna lose my job.
Botham John was rushed to the hospital, but unfortunately, he succumbed to his injuries and died. 3 days later, Amber was arrested and charged with manslaughter. However, the charge was later upgraded to murder following further investigation. In the aftermath of the shooting, Amber was placed on administrative leave by the Dallas Police Department. However, on September 24, 2018, she was fired. The firing resulted from her violation of department policies regarding the use of force and entry without consent.
But there is much more to be done by the city of Dallas.
Amber Geiger's trial began on September 23, 2019. She took the stand in her own defense, recounting the events that led to her shooting of Botham John and testifying that she feared for her life and thought Botham John was an intruder in her apartment. Both the prosecution and defense presented expert witnesses who testified about the use of force, split-second decision-making, and self-defense. After deliberating for about an hour, the jury returned with a guilty verdict against Amber Geiger on October 1, 2019. The following day, she was sentenced to 10 years in prison for her role in Botham's murder. During the sentencing phase of the trial, Botham John's mother, Allison John, provided an emotional testimony, sharing the impact her son's death had on her life and her family. Botham's younger brother, Brant John, also took the stand, expressing his forgiveness for Amber and even hugging her in the courtroom. Although Botham's father did forgive Amber, he wanted her to be stiffer.
Somebody told her that Botham was shot and that he died. My life has not been the same. It's just been like a roller coaster. I cannot sleep. I cannot eat. It's just been the most terrible time for me.
But I love you just like anyone else. I'm not gonna say I hope you rot and die. And I wasn't gonna ever say this in front of my family or anyone, but I don't even want you to go to jail.
Amber Geiger's appeal has been denied, which means that her sentence will stand as decided by the courts. She is still eligible for release as early as September 2024. On the other hand, her full sentence will continue to run until September 2029. The Amber Geiger trial sparked conversations and debates about racial profiling, police brutality, and criminal justice in the United States. Critics argued that Amber's conviction was a rare example of accountability in a system that often favors officers in use of force cases. Supporters of Amber expressed concerns about the potential for vigilantism if officers were discouraged from exercising their right to defend themselves. Next up, a police officer who claimed self-defense, but the evidence told a far more chilling story. Tamika Johnson went from trusted cop to convicted killer.
That CHP officer is behind bars, charged with murdering her husband.
Tamika Johnson, a California Highway Patrol officer, found herself in a tragic situation in February 2009 when she shot and killed her husband, Marcus Lemons, while on a freeway exit ramp. After the shooting, Tamika drove to her parents' home with Marcus's body in the front seat of her car. When questioned by detectives, Tamika provided them with a detailed account of what led to the incident. According to Tamika, she and her husband started their night out at TGI Fridays, but an argument soon erupted. Tamika stated that she took the car keys and started to drive home, attempting to ignore the escalating tensions between her and Marcus. However, Marcus became enraged when she ignored him, grabbing her neck. Tamika claimed she pulled over on the freeway, hoping to calm down and defuse the situation. However, the struggle continued as Marcus took the keys out of the ignition, and a fight over Tamika's purse ensued. Tamika believed that Marcus was going for the gun she carried in her bag, and in self-defense, she managed to get hold of the weapon and shoot Marcus. However, after a thorough investigation, the detectives came to the conclusion that Tamika's story was not one of self-defense. Instead, they suspected it was cold-blooded murder. 2 years after her husband's death, Tamika Johnson was arrested and charged with murder. She pleaded not guilty and was held on a $2 million bail as she awaited trial. Due to her arrest, Tamika was placed on administrative leave without pay from her position as a California Highway Patrol officer. During Tamika's trial, her defense attorneys attempted to present her as a victim of domestic violence, not as someone who committed a callous act of murder. However, the prosecution countered these claims by presenting evidence that Tamika had exhibited aggressive tendencies and a tendency to drink excessively. Additionally, the prosecution painted the victim, Marcus, as a kind and peaceful man. Tamika took the witness stand to testify in her defense, but her statements did little to sway the jury. The jury ultimately found her guilty of first-degree murder, sentencing her to 50 years to life in prison. After the verdict was read, Tamika slid out of her chair behind the defense table and onto the floor. She was handcuffed to a gurney rail by her left wrist and removed from the courtroom as her family wailed and sobbed. These female police officers broke the very oath they once swore to uphold to protect and serve. Their actions brought betrayal, heartbreak, and lasting scars. Their crimes shocked the nation, and their sentences marked the fall of those sworn to protect.